I get extremely excited when I see little boys and little girls in public.
Oh!
I oil up my cat every single night.
Oh!
Somebody! Oh!
He needs some milk!
When I was 6 years old, I was raped by a pedophile. This was a situation that I kept a secret for so many years because I felt like it was my fault. Getting raped at 6 years old by a closeted pedo definitely sucked.
Just as a disclaimer, I know my most recent videos have had a lot to do with assault in them. And I know I don't know what's happening. I promise I'll try and make this my last one. Speaking of, I believe this to be the most serious. This video will go into deep discussion of rape, sexual assault, pedophilia, child assault, child abuse, and addiction. If any of those are sensitive topics for you, please click off this video. Take care of yourself, and I can see you again in another video. With that being said and done, let's get into it.
I get extremely excited when I see little boys and little girls in public.
Oh!
Sometimes they know me from online, and so they come up to me, they talk to me, they ask for pictures, and
I would say, okay, he's just intro baiting, but why are little boys and little girls coming up to you in public when this is the types of videos you make?
I oil up my cat every single night.
Oh!
Somebody! Oh!
He needs some milk!
Yeah, I'm gonna go jump off of a bridge and drown in the water below.
To me to keep his hole as lubricated as possible every single day. I put salmon oil in my cat's mouth hole.
Okay, look, I don't want to say that I'm mad or angry. I'm glad that he didn't lubricate the hole we were all thinking about. But something about this content seems, maybe I say it, desperate. He says crazy, creepy, and controversial things to get big reactions and watch time out of people, even if he doesn't believe in it, or if it isn't true, just to get attention. That sounds like someone we've talked about, doesn't it? Link in description.
And I know that he absolutely loves it. Right, Tobias?
Free him, he don't deserve to be in there.
I feel like I've said everything I can for this section of the video. But before we move on to the more serious parts and topics, I wanted to show you guys some more clips of his videos just so you guys have an understanding of what we're getting into, and so you have context if you watch the next section.
Drinking and swallowing thick, milky, creamy loads after playing with an old man's balls in the hot sun for an hour straight is by far my favorite thing to do. I just made this thick, creamy, milky smoothie. I just played with balls next to a bunch of children. I'm so bad at hitting tennis balls. Mexicans just edged my mushroomed tip of a head. Here is my new haircut in 3, 2, 1. Phew. Today I am identifying as a very hungry Muslim. Sometimes I feel like I was born in the wrong body and I'm not trans. I'm supposed to be like a super fat human being, like suffering, literally dying from obesity, because every single time I have like sweets, I get extremely excited when I see little boys and little girls in public, because sometimes they know me from online, and so they come up to me, they talk to me, they ask for pictures, and it's always a blast. And I've made it my life mission to always be nice.
He's a clickbaiter, attention baiter, rage baiter, shock baiter, masturbate, and never stands on what he says, because he never really means it. He simply just wants the reactions, and seems to desperately want to recreate the viral moment he made with the Nair video. But there was a few things I found hole digging on his accounts, and his oddly sexual, creepy and reaction-seeking behavior may have a very dark reason.
Getting raped at 6 years old by a closeted pedo definitely sucked, like literally and figuratively. And for a long time, I let that moment control me because I literally cut myself like the scout regiment with titans all over my legs and my sides. And I feel like even though I've healed from that situation today, I'm super into being submissive and like I love to be controlled like real estate when it comes to relationships and dating. And I feel like it's all partly because of what happened to me as a child.
I wanted to give my opinion on this video and topic, but the more I watch this video, the more I realize it's not serious. It continues with him talking about his fetishes and then promoting one of his events, and that I feel like is one of his biggest problems, at least online. For just one video, he no longer can seem to take anything serious or be genuine anymore. He started out so heartfelt, then quickly fell back to his lustful actions, which I feel there's a darker reason behind. I understand wanting to tell your story, but you have to know when to take things seriously. I understand everyone has different ways in coping with things, and what he went through is very serious and traumatic, and something that shouldn't be taken lightly. But something about these videos he makes, talking about it like it's all some sort of joke, feels disingenuous and distasteful.
When I was 6 years old, I was raped by a pedophile. This was a situation that I kept a secret for so many years because I felt like it was my fault and that if people knew about it, they would see me as like this disgusting person because of it. I know now that that isn't true, but growing up, I really felt like my life was forever ruined by this one nasty old man. Since I've told my story offline, many people have come to me and shared with me that they've gone through something similar. I believe that sharing my story on here will encourage people to share theirs and spread awareness and prevent this from happening to children all over the world. Start from the beginning. I was born in Jakarta, Indonesia, and I was raised there until I was 8 years old, which was when I moved to the United States. Aside from little jokes, blurry childhood memories, and my dad passing away, I don't really remember a lot of concrete adolescent moments during my time in Indonesia. Obviously, except for one. I spent a lot of my weekends at my grandparents' place, and I had this neighbor/friend who was about my age. We called him Ray. I was 6 and he was 7. I hung out with Ray a lot at his place, just doing little kid stuff, watching cartoons, playing with toys, etc. One day I was at his house and I looked at him and his pants were down. That was my first time seeing a dick that wasn't my own. And I think I literally was like, why are your pants down? He told me to touch it and to play with it, and I didn't know what was right or what was wrong at the time, so I kind of just went along with it. He then took off my pants and started playing with my stuff, and like I said, I didn't know what was right or what was wrong at the time. All I knew was that it physically felt good and it seemed fun, so I kind of just kept going with him. If I remember correctly, I think we had boners, which is weird because how can 6-year-olds have boners? But I don't know. Anyway, so this went on for a couple of weeks. I would come over, he would take off my pants, I would take off his pants, and we would just like touch each other. Sometimes it was even outside in the front yard. There were trees and plants covering us. I don't know if anyone ever saw anything. I know now that it was wrong and that I should have said no to him, but I didn't. I hope I can just put it on childhood innocence. But this wasn't like the worst thing that happened. It made me feel guilty for a little bit, but like because he was my age and because it was like fun at the time, I didn't feel like it was like super wrong. So then when the moment came where an old man molested me, I didn't really know how to react. I was hanging out with my friend Jessica at her house and we were watching South Park, the cartoon. I remember seeing some guy named Kenny on the show go to hell because he lit up someone's underwear on fire, and then I got picked up by Jessica's old uncle and he brought me upstairs to a random room in the house. I don't know where Jessica went. I think she just stayed and watched the show. This old uncle, I don't think I've met him before, but he looked like he was like 57 or 60 or something. He brought me to his room and he put me down on the bed. Again, I was 6 years old at the time, so I wasn't really sure of what was going on, and I wasn't sure of how I was supposed to react. I wish I had said something or tried to leave, but he was a grown man and I didn't really know what else to do, so I kind of just sat there and didn't say anything, which I feel horrible about. So then he started taking off my pants and started like touching me there. By the way, this was in Indonesian, not English, so like, yeah. I don't really remember what I said, but because Ray had already touched me prior to this, it seemed less abnormal in my head. So I think I said sure, and I just kind of like let him touch me, which I feel horrible about now, but like at the time, I wasn't really sure of how to react to it. Anyway, so he took that as a sign to start using his mouth, and so he did. Essentially, he gave me head, and after that, he took off his pants and told me to start playing with his private areas. And then he brought me back downstairs, and then I carried on with my day. It's so upsetting to me because that was like my first blowjob, you know? Like, it's gross. And I'm very aware that it's gross. So if you think that it's gross, I'm with you. Here's the thing though, when you're 6 years old and things physically feel good but morally are wrong, you don't really know how to process that in your head. You don't really know what to do, and you don't really know how to go about it afterwards. I was still hanging out with Ray that month, so my first instinct was to introduce him to mouth stuff, which I know is gross, so don't tell me it's gross because like I feel kind of like ashamed for that. It didn't go on for too long after that because my grandparents moved and I stopped seeing Ray. I just stopped going into that town altogether. What killed me immediately was an internal struggle that I couldn't figure out. I knew that something felt wrong and I knew that something was wrong, but I couldn't figure it out and I couldn't tell my parents. A year passed and my dad passed away in 2005. I wasn't super close with him, but everybody in my family was devastated, especially my mom. My mom was and is my best friend, but we had a lot of issues growing up when I first told her what had happened to me. My family is Catholic, and there was one night where my mom was praying for my dead dad in the living room. I had been feeling so guilty over the Ray thing and the pedophile thing that for some reason on this particular night, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I had to tell her. So when my mom finished praying, I told her the whole story in full, and the reaction wasn't good. Rightfully so. My mom got really upset, not just because it's fucked up and it's a sin to be gay in the religion, but also because she thought that I kept it from her because I liked what had happened to me. I definitely didn't like the pedophile thing that happened to me, but I could see a point in where like the Ray thing was something that I continued, which makes me feel so gross, but like honestly I was 6 years old and I didn't know what I was doing, and that's confusing to me, you know? The fact that maybe I did enjoy my relationship with Ray, but I definitely didn't ask for that relationship, and I also didn't ask to get raped by Jessica's uncle. But ultimately I knew that it was wrong and my mom knew that it was wrong, so that following Sunday she brought me to the church so that I could confess my sins to a priest. I wasn't really sure what to tell the priest. I kind of just told him what had happened to me and I said that I was sorry. But to be honest, going to confession didn't really make me feel better about myself. In fact, it actually made me feel a lot worse. Because by going to confession, I felt like I did something incredibly shameful to myself and to my family, and I couldn't really live with that for a long time. I couldn't handle that shame. Because deep down, I knew that I wasn't a bad person. I kind of just let bad things happen to me because I didn't know any better. I didn't know this at the time, but this was the moment where I started resenting my mom. Because I felt like I opened up to her about something painful, and her reaction was to bring me to confession and make me feel worse about it. I spent the next 10 years absolutely just hating myself. My teenage years were fucked because of this. I was naturally a weirdo and a loser that just flew in from Indonesia. I barely knew any English or anything about American culture, which I fucking hated about myself. I felt like an outsider, but I would have crushes on guys and girls, and I never really knew what I liked. Anytime that I had a crush on a dude or thought anything about a dude, I had this crippling anxiety in my head telling me that it was wrong. Because I had it ingrained in me that I might only have crushes on guys because I was exposed to gay sexual relations at a very young age. I also didn't ever want to make any moves on anyone because I felt like if I did, I would be doing what those molesters did to me, and I honestly don't think I could have lived with that. At the time, nobody ever shared with me that anything similar had happened to them. I know that I kept mine a secret, and I'm sure a lot of people kept their situations a secret too, but because I didn't hear of this happening to anybody else, I really felt like I was alone in this, and I felt like I was the only person that ever got molested. I was the only person that ever had to deal with the pain and the shame and just the guilt of it all. So in response to feeling like I was a disgusting teenager with disgusting thoughts and feelings, I repressed them all. I didn't date, I didn't kiss anyone, I didn't do anything with anyone. I had crushes on people, but I never did anything with them, and it never went anywhere. I couldn't really get guys or girls anyway because I was naturally a weirdo and a loser at school, to be honest. I repressed everything so much to the point where I was feeling so bad about my life, but I couldn't figure out why. Because I was too afraid to revisit those childhood memories and like acknowledge them and feel the negative emotions and like move on from them. I couldn't even be aware and acknowledge that these things had happened to me because I was so ashamed that they did. This includes my resentment towards my mom. We had a horrible relationship growing up, and I know now that it was because shitty things happened to me as a kid. My mom didn't know how to handle it, so she like handled it wrong, and then that made me become a worse kid, and then that made her worse at handling said bad kid. So when all of my friends were out there dating, having fun, losing their virginities, fucking, I spent all of my time hating my life, thinking that I'm asexual, and that I'm never gonna find love, and that I'm gross, and that I'm never going to have sex normally and have fun doing it. I was literally this virgin loser who got bullied for being weird and problematic, rightfully so, who had a horrible relationship with his mom, who ran away from home a bunch of times, and spent his nights crying himself to sleep and cutting himself every night. Good times.
This video explains and tells a lot. I appreciate Kevin for sharing his story with the internet, and I hope it hit the right people because firsthand support is so rare and so needed for some people. For the people who skipped, Kevin basically says when he was 6 he had a 7-year-old male friend who pressured him or more of introduced Kevin to sex and sexual activities like masturbation. A while later, one of his friend's uncles orally and masturbation raped Kevin. As a kid who was in a sexual relationship with another boy, Kevin thought it was weird, but couldn't identify as rape and see it for what it was. It took him a while to tell his Catholic mother, but when he did, she didn't react well and told him he needed to confess to the Catholic guy. And you know what? No, Just go back and watch it. Anyway, I feel as if the reason Kevin may act the way he does is, well, to cope. His life, which was so sexualized already by a young age, doesn't know how to end the cycle. His brain taught himself that, yes, rape is bad, but doesn't fully know the extent as to why, as it still seems to hold sex on this pedestal. His brain was forced to understand and grow desires for these things before he even started to develop. And I feel like these outbursts and this attention-seeking, specifically for sexual things, is his mind trying to find confirmation that he too can experience sex and sexual things without it being in a bad scenario. He, or I should just keep saying his brain, likely is so sexually driven, as that's how it was taught, that now as an adult, trying to erase the past is only possible by drawing the future and recreating something until you perfect it. Perfect it so much so, you can't remember how bad the first sketch looked. Conclusion: I couldn't be completely wrong about everything. That's just my speculation and theory, so please don't take it as gospel, and don't quote me. I really hope that whatever Kevin is going through right now, whatever this attention-seeking behavior is, isn't related to his past. I do hope that I'm wrong, and I hope he's just a super horny guy that got completely over his past, though I'm sure for that to be true, his past would still be playing some sort of role in his psyche. Either way, I hope Kevin is happy truly, and I hope his mind is able to finish that sketch and make it a masterpiece.
Hello, what you making? The world's yours for the taking. Everything you touch, yeah, you gotta let it in. Your crown's made out of paper, and you've never looked greater. Got an empty canvas, so where to begin? Build your own